Good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Weissoon. If you enjoy real-world hunting and fishing talk, you're really going to enjoy listening to my good friend, Luke Clayton, and his guest for the next hour.
This is David Fox, and welcome to Outdoors with Luke Clayton and Friends. Luke has been a recognized outdoors writer for the past 3 decades and writes for a host of outdoor publications. Luke pens a weekly newspaper outdoors column that appears in over 40 Texas newspapers. Luke is on the pro staff of Pyramyd Air, your one-stop shop for everything air gun related. Smokin Tex electric smokers and AGM Global Vision, maker of an awesome line of thermal hunting scopes and spotters. Feel free to contact Luke through his website, catfishradio.org. Now let's join Luke and his guests for this week's show.
Well, thank you, guys. And, folks, it is almost turkey season. South Texas is going to kick off always just a little early before North Texas kicks off. Mr. Larry Weissoon is with us, and we're going to talk turkey today in just a little bit, aren't we, Larry?
We really are. Luke, before we do that, though, we got to really thank some of our sponsors, which is DSC, Conservation, Education, and Advocacy, Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable, Stealth Vision there at Crockett, Texas, that makes the Stealth Vision scopes and spotting scopes and binoculars. And I want to come back to that in just a little bit as well, too. VINEYARDMAX courses there in Nacogdoches. They make some fabulous feeders, and oh my gosh, that Vineyard Max, that deer attractant, and then also they sell my knives. Of course, we got Taurus as well too. That they make the Raging Hunter handguns that I use, and then I'm bringing this one up last, Mossberg, because Mossberg makes some absolutely fabulous turkey shotguns, and they too are made right here in Texas, down in Eagle Pass. So you mentioned turkey hunts. I'll have to tell you, it's been a long time since I have killed a turkey. Now, I've been on a bunch of turkey hunts during the spring. I still enjoy calling them, but I really hadn't even tried to take one. Maybe this is the year I need to pull that old Mossberg shotgun that I've got, or rather new Mossberg shotgun I've got, and see if I can't go take a gobbler this year.
Yes, sir. Spring turkey hunting, to me, I look back through the years, and I've had so much fun doing that. But I always take time to remember my old buddy Bob Hood. And Bob,
Amen.
Bob and turkey hunting go hand in hand. That rascal, I don't know if if Bob was any better turkey hunter than anybody else. He could call them, and who can't? I mean, with a box call, it's not hard to learn.
Right.
But he was like me. He detested a diaphragm call. I hate those things with a passion. I do. I don't mind telling that. Back about 20, 30 years ago, when the diaphragm calls became popular, everybody had to have you don't have to move your hands. You can just sound like a hen with your mouth with that diaphragm call. Well, I choked up on those things for 3 or 4 years, and I thought, wait a minute, I'm not calling any better than I did with my old box call, chalked up box call, and I just said to heck with it. So I don't play that. I don't fool with them anymore. But if you're most turkey hunters, especially most modern day turkey hunters, still use. They'll have a slate, they'll have a box call, they'll have a diaphragm in their mouth. I mean, they run the gamut. But I will say this, and if Mr. Hood was listening, he would concur with this. If you can sound like a hen, a 5-noted hen on a box call, you can call turkeys if they're hot. Now, Larry, I do not. This is a quandary in the outdoors that I've never figured out. Why on certain days you can go out there and you can strike that box call, a locator call, and try to see what's out there. You'll hear gobbles from as far away as you can hear gobbles. The next day, maybe, you go out there and the gobblers go totally silent. They quit calling. I never have figured. If anybody can figure that one out, it's crazy how they turn on, and then, not to say they're not still actively pursuing hens. I know they are, but it's just crazy. From one day they're red hot gobbling, the next day you can't choke a gobbler. You can't make one gobble.
The next day and the next day they may be gobbling again. And I really wish I knew an answer. I
Yeah,
don't.
I know.
I've experienced the same thing over the same, a whole bunch of years. And I used to not only just hunt in Texas, I hunted Merriam's in New Mexico and down in the Easterns all the way, to Alabama and all, and very much the same thing there. And there's some things that I have learned about turkey hunting over doing so for a long, long time. And I was one of the guys that helped get the turkey season started all throughout North Texas back in the 70s when we first started having turkey seasons in Texas, the spring turkey season. Prior to that, you only hunted turkeys during the fall.
Mm-hmm.
But over those years, have had the opportunity to be around some outstanding callers, including a whole bunch of the guys who used to win the world championship. When we used to do a lot of stuff with Realtree every year, Bill Jerton and David Blanton would bring down the top turkey callers, and we would take them down the Encinitas Ranch where there was a turkey per every, say, 5 acres on 42,000 acres.
Yeah, yep.
And what always tickled me is those world champion callers would come down, and there were a few, Eddie Salter, Walter Parrott. Those two guys knew how to hunt turkeys. The rest of them that came down were pretty much just callers, and they would try to impress those birds with calling rather than sit there and do a yelp and let those, and just be quiet. And that was interesting, is that I learned very quickly that you can overcall birds. And a lot of times it's better just to sit there and make a little noise and then be quiet for a long time. That gobbler pinpoints you immediately. The other thing about all that is particularly in certain areas of Texas, in the southeast where you got a homogeneous type of cover, tall trees, and there people try to slip in close and call that bird off the roost. Now that bird probably has ideas where he wants to go to start with, and if you're in the right place, he's going to come to you. But here in Texas, where very often the tallest trees around are a whole lot taller than the other things that you're hunting around, so that bird's sitting up there, he's cognizant of what's going on out there, and people try to slip into those roosts, and guess what? When you start calling, when that bird pitches off, he goes the opposite direction. And so that's one of the things I learned. The other thing is the best thing for me as far as a turkey hunter was to go out and hunt a little bit, look for shed antlers first thing in the morning, and then really start getting serious about 9:30, 10 o'clock. And that's when I used to call up a lot of big gobblers. By then, they've been on that roost all night. They've listened to where the hens are. They're going to go that direction. And if you're in the right place, good. But if not, they'll check on those hens, and they'll go here in about 9:30 or 10 o'clock. They're looking. And to me, that has always been the best time to try to kill it, particularly an old longbeard with big spurs.
That's very true, Larry, and I bet you every turkey hunter listening will agree with you. Textbook turkey hunting goes something like this. It's no turkey hunter I know, if they're at their camp or wherever, most of us get out there before daylight. We do, especially if we've roosted some birds and know where they're at. But textbook is to get out there before daylight, set you a decoy up. I found Jake decoys with a hen to be very effective.
Very effective, yes.
Yep, because that old gobbler does not like that program. So set your decoys up, get concealed really well, and the birds are still, you can hear them talking to each other before they fly off that roost if you're within 100 yards, and making their little subtle sounds that turkeys make. And then you'll hear that... You'll hear them coming off the roost, and you might be able to see them if you're close. But think about it. Those gobblers, they're probably going to be roosted with the hens right in that area. A lot of times they are. Okay, it's breeding season. They are with what they're looking for. They're with the hens right there. So when they hit the ground, sometimes textbook, you'll start making some hen yelps and cuts and purrs, and that old gobbler will leave those hens and come to you. But that is, like you say, Larry, I found that to be more often than not the case. Usually, when they breed those hens that's in their vicinity, and I'm sure those gobblers know who's there.
Oh yeah,
those hens are going to go to their nest, And those gobblers are, as that old country music song, looking for love in all the wrong places, I guess. So that gobbler's going to be out patrolling, and that's when you're success. From say 10 to 3, middle of the day.
Exactly.
Because those gobblers, they're still active. They're out looking, and you're exactly right, Larry. You mentioned shotguns. I've killed. I went through a period of probably close to 20 years where just about the only I went through the bow hunting thing where that's about all I did. But
Right.
then for various reasons, I started shooting air guns and everything else, other than just bows. But I've used those. People talk about killing turkeys with a bow. If you can it's not that big a deal, really. It's not. If you can but you do need a pop-up blind, something like that, where you can conceal yourself, and a decoy. But it's not good for running and gunning bow hunting for turkeys, Larry, because you got to bring them right to you, and then you draw back inside that blind. I've killed several gobblers and hens too in the fall. From a blind with a bow. But this year, I'm going to, you mentioned Mossberg. I've got one of the Gold Reserve 20 gauge. This is something I've never used on a turkey hunt. It's a 20 gauge. People kill them now with 410s regularly, but get one up within 25 yards. But some of the heavy loads that we've got now, I know that gun, it's an over and under Gold Reserve Mossberg, and I've not, I haven't had a chance to. I've never hunted turkeys with it. I've only had it about 6 months. I'm going to use that gun. I'm going to get some heavy loads, and I don't see why in the world. It's so light to carry. It's a light shotgun. But I've also got I think it's 940. Their auto loader. I don't have the actual camo turkey gun, but. Same. It's a 12 gauge and it's an auto loader. So, but I'm thinking very seriously about using that 20 gauge, Larry. That Mossberg
yes,
Gold Reserve. Yep.
I love those. I've got them in a 410 and I've got a 20 gauge coming. Of course, the beauty of that is, among other things, that gun comes with 5 different chokes, screw-in chokes, and there is an extra full, as I recall, choke there too. I can't remember what the constriction on that one is, but I've not had a chance. I'm waiting on this 20 gauge to try it out this year. Like I said, this may be the year that I try to get a turkey. We'll just kind of see, but maybe if I don't, I'll try to hand that shotgun to somebody else, and I'll go out and try to call one up for somebody. But the ammunition that we have available these days, I can remember years ago when we first started seeing turkey loads in 4s and 5s, and then the different types of shot, the bismuth shot, and then tungsten, and things have just increased, and with the special chokes that are available out there now, and the turkey loads that are out there. You mentioned 410, absolutely 410 at 30, 40 yards these days. People are shooting them, and to me, it's always been years ago when we first started the wild spring turkey seasons. I gave a lot of seminars all throughout the northern part of the state where it got the season started, and somebody would ask me, says, "What's your favorite turkey gun?" Well, my favorite turkey gun was a 270, and everybody go, "What do you mean? What a 270? You're going to shoot them out there long?" I said, "No," I said, it really to me doesn't make a whole lot of difference. I'm hunting where nobody else is. I said, from the safety factor, I don't have to worry about it. I said, but to me, the joy comes in calling that bird in close. My deal was, I'm not going to kill a bird regardless of what I'm shooting, unless he's within 20 yards, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so to me, you have to consider the safety aspects of it, but as long as that gun is legal, by golly, and you're hunting in an area where you don't have to worry about that bullet traveling very far because of the brush or the trees or whatever, there's nothing wrong with shooting one with a rifle as far as I'm concerned, particularly but you got to call them in close. That's what it amounts to. Don't be out there shooting long range at them. That's
true. We are about out of time, Larry. I will leave one more little turkey tip that I've learned the hard way. Pattern that shotgun. Whatever you do, folks, we're all about shooting in a rifle. Well, don't think you can just pick the shotgun up and know exactly where that pattern is going to be at different yardages or where to hold the bead on this bird. Do some practicing on a big sheet of paper or whatever. draw you a turkey head out of those targets you can buy, and make sure and pattern that gun. And I've learned the hard way that ultra tight choke up close.
Rifle.
It is. I use a modified. Larry, thank you so much for being with us, buddy. I've had fun. I bet our guests have too.
And we'll see everybody back here next week.
I want to tell you about a one-stop shop for everything related to game feeders and fish feeders, Ultrimatic Feeders. I've been using components and feeders from Ultrimatic Feeders for 20-something years, I guess. They have the remote, which you can remotely activate your feeder with, the timer, which is the most simple timer that I've ever found on a game feeder. And then the eliminator. Check these out. They are worked on centrifugal force, and they seal off the corn supply so coons and squirrels can't get to the corn. Check them out. Ultrimatic Feeders, you can go online to ultrimaticfeeders.com. Folks, I want to introduce you to VINEYARDMAX. Now, this is an awesome deer attractant, a food attractant that's made with hammer-milled grape skin, dried hammer-milled grape skins. It has a mixture of rice bran and also corn chops. Very effective. Deer can smell the scent of grapes from a long way, and it brings them in. I've used it in West Texas out with Larry Weissoon, and we were out there where deer are not even exposed to grapes, and they came right in. Also, VINEYARDMAX has a very good line of game and fish feeders. Check them out online, vineyardmax.net. Friends, I want to tell you about an awesome camping destination, Wind Point Park on Lake Tawakoni. It's over on the far east side, kind of the northeast side of the lake. It's a pristine park. You can go there and view, I think they estimated a couple of hundred deer on that couple of hundred acres there. Cabins, beautiful RV park, fishing piers, docks. It's got everything you'd want in an outdoor destination. Check them out online at windpointparktx.com. Well, friends, Mr. Larry Weissoon is going to tell you about the finest hunting optics that we have ever found.
Luke, these are called Stealth Vision. They come from Crockett, Texas. Dr. John McCall developed them. They're 34-millimeter tubes as opposed to the narrower tubes, so more light transmission. They have a little green light that comes on. That scope is leveled because that's when you want to pull the trigger. They have an optional lighted reticle as well, too, and a whole lot of other products, and folks can learn more about them by going to stealthvision.com.
Friends, this segment is made possible by Platinum Cadillac and Chevrolet in Terrell, Texas. Stop by and visit with my buddy, Mr. Justin Rudd, and his team of experts, and let them put you in a new Chevy pickup or a Cadillac or whatever you might be in the market for. Also, the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma. Check them out at ChoctawHuntingLodge.com. Also made possible by Pyramyd Air, your one-stop shop for everything airgun related. Well, folks, you know, deer season is pretty much a done deal this year, but deer managers, biologists, it's always deer season to these guys. Now, Mr. Larry Weissoon, I know you enjoyed our visit earlier in today's show, but Larry's back. We were talking after we visited on the air there about deer surveys and some things that have to be done to learn populations of deer. And that's what we want to talk about. Larry, thank you for coming back with us, buddy.
Absolutely. And look, you're right. You know, to me, deer season never ends. Now, the killing season ends, but when it comes to all the rest of it, deer, you know, it's not like deer just totally go away and then they show up again come, the fall.
Right.
And so right now is a time that you really got to think about all kinds of different things. And of course, right now is a great time. Bucks are starting to lose their antlers, and I'm a big proponent of picking up shed antlers and trying to see, what kind of bucks are out there. And you can learn so much by shed antlers as well, too. And particularly if you can get them from year to year kind of thing on certain bucks to see how they're done. But a lot of things can be learned about, just picking up a shed antler. You know where that buck was at a certain period of time. all that kind of good thing. And, looking at it, finding old sheds, if it looks like we talked about this in the past, you find old sheds and there are cattle and deer on the property, and it looks like they've been chewed on so that, they're not those little tiny teeth marks like you find from rats or mice or rabbits or squirrels. Usually if you see that, you're kind of a little low on calcium and phosphorus or some of the other trace minerals. In Texas, at least, we can put out minerals in a few other states, but always check that. But now's the time to start thinking about too that, getting ready for the coming season, and hopefully you've got a little bit of an idea of kind of what you had on your property to start with by keeping some incidental observations as to the number of bucks, does, and fawns that you saw during the last part of or throughout the last part of this last year.
True. Larry, I did a newspaper article back several months ago, and I did a little bit of research on the managed land permits in Texas.
Right.
And many folks from Texas are aware of this. I guess most hunters are, but out of state folks, what this is Texas Parks and Wildlife requires surveys to be done to determine how many deer are on a property and what the habitat is like, what the habitat will support. And guys like Larry, biologists, conduct these, put together all the data, I guess I should say. But Larry, if I'm not mistaken, there was upwards of 10,000 ranches in Texas that are under this managed land permit, where the state, when given the appropriate data, determines how many bucks, how many does need to be harvested each year. And I've been fortunate to help you a couple of times in the summer do these deer surveys. So there's all kind of ways. The old way is like a line count, and I've helped you with those before, where you drive a ranch at night, and every 300 yards or whatever, you take incidental sightings, I guess it would be called, and keep records, right? That's one way.
Right.
Uh-huh. Yep.
It is. The surveys, which I spent so many years in a helicopter doing helicopter surveys down in South Texas where the brush is low. A lot of Texas, you can't do that kind of thing. And we talked about incidental observation. One of the things that I highly encourage people to do is throughout the year, whenever they're out on their property, their lease or whatever, is just keep a log of the number of bucks, does, and fawns that you see. And by season, right now you can't hardly tell this past year's fawns from grown deer, but pretty soon you will be able to. And if you do those kind of things, particularly starting when the bucks really have got antlers up and the fawns are on the ground, just start keeping a record of the number of bucks, does, and fawns that you see every time you go out. It doesn't make a difference whether you see them all, the same ones again and again. That'll give you a pretty good idea as you get a little bit farther on as to what kind of fawn survival rates you have, which is the number expressed in a percentage of the number of fawns divided by the total number of does that you saw. And you can kind of do the same thing with your buck to doe ratios. Keep a record of all the bucks and then all the does, and divide the number of bucks into the number of does, and it'll give you what your buck to doe ratio is. Then I want to remind everybody, those folks that are on, we got a lot of people on MLDP programs here in Texas. April the 1st is the deadline to continue. But then if you're new to the deal, you can start May 1, you can start applying for it. And there are two ways to go about doing it. Probably the easiest way is just to go online and Google Texas Managed Land Deer Permit, and all that stuff will pop up and tell you, the information, the exact information that you need. And there's a form there that you can fill out. And there are two options. One is a harvest option and one is a conservation option. And the regulations change a little bit as to what you can harvest, in terms of the size of the antlers early on, or like with the harvest to begin with, you can only hunt with certain stipulations, only bucks with, a spike on one side, and then you can hunt the other kind of bucks a little bit later on. And the beauty of those permits is that you don't use the tag off your hunting license. You have to use the tag that's issued to the landowner or the agent. And so it's not, those deer are not held against any deer that you might take, with your license. And the other side of that is it was originally designed years ago to allow more time to harvest the number of does that you really need to take off, so that basically the with the MLD, you can start hunting like at the like this past year. It was September the 28th, and it ran through February the 28th. So it's usually very close to October 1 through the end of the year. And it's a specified number of animals that you take based upon the survey. And we can come back to the surveys are generally done in August and September.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's when I remember last summer. That's when I was with you on the cotton ranch.
Exactly.
We were driving around at night, and it's I know that's one of the prescribed ways to do it, like we did. Is it called like a line count, or anyway, where you drive a certain route? Uh-huh.
Right, it's a spotlight survey,
Spotlight,
and basically what you're doing, to start with, you're going out an hour after dark on a specified line. You're keeping record of the distance that you're going, but every 1/10 of a mile to start with, you take a reading as to how far you can see left and right, perpendicular to your line, and you do that in an estimate of yards. And with that, basically, you come up with an average of what you see per mile in terms of acreage. And the thing about it is, you take that number, that average, and multiply it times 1,760, which is the number of yards in a mile. That will give you a square yardage, and then 4,840 a number of square yards are an acre. So you divide that number into the what you'd observed, and you do that on a mile basis, per mile basis, or a percentage of that mile basis, and that gives you the total acreage that you're surveying. And then you can, you count the bucks, does, and unidentified deer that you see where you're doing, and from that you can come up with with whatever the local density is.
Yep. Larry, that I don't know that today with trail cameras, with drones, helicopters, which the drone, in a way, it seems to me like a quality drone could take the place of a helicopter a lot of times. But that seems so much to me, it seems so much better because, the systems that we've got today, the ways to observe the deer herd from the air and from the trail cameras, all that, I guess all that could come in. Could that come into play also, those methods, as far as determining the numbers?
It can. But those drones that do those kind of things, they are issued special permits. So you need the best way to do that, if somebody's interested in doing those kind of things, using the drone, and it's a great way of doing it. But I would suggest getting in touch with the local game warden and saying, okay, who in this county or this part of the county, has got those kind of permits, because you got to be real careful. There's an airborne hunting act. Yep. It doesn't say anything about using, whether it's a manned vehicle or an unmanned vehicle. So you want to stay very carefully within, whatever the laws are. But I would contact the local game warden and say, okay, I know there are guys in this county here that have drones that are probably doing these kind of surveys. Who are the legal guys that you can recommend?
And they're already working with them, so they know who they are. Yeah, that's a good point.
And they'll know who those folks are, and if there's none in that county, those game wardens are very helpful about things. They'll go, let me call, the guys working county so and so, because I know I've talked about it. Yep. And to me, that is probably the first step if you decide to do those kind of things using the drone. But I've looked at some of the data that they've come up with, and my gosh, and I've had the chance to be around when it was done. And you can actually, with some of those drones, you can distinguish bucks, does, fawns. You can tell whether it's a hog. You can tell it's a coyote. And to me, you can get so much data doing it that way. And hopefully over a period of time, that will become a more standard practice and a more accepted practice as well, too.
I know the old school practice, though. I'm not laughing because but when you're driving through, say you're driving through the woods on a survey, you can't see much, you really can't. You can see what you can see, maybe 20, 30 yards out there, but then you go through fields too on these route surveys like that, and I guess overall, that practice has probably been around, Larry, I'm guessing, a long time, right?
Yeah, it goes back probably to the late 1960s.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
so it's accepted practice. And basically, what you're doing is you're looking. It gives you an idea. Even with drones and all the other things, trail cameras, there's no way to ever get an exact figure because you've also got a lot of ingress and egress of those deer going on to different properties as well.
Sure.
But it gives you good trend data that you can work off of, and we did it before we had all the fancy stuff we have these days. We did it for probably 40 years.
Yeah, right.
It's amazing some of the results that we had, using those old days in terms of producing a very quality deer.
Yeah. Well, Larry, I can't believe it. We're just about out of time, but folks that might want to put their ranch, or here's another question. Say, say there's a 1,000-acre ranch or whatever, leased by 3 or 4 guys, and they want to put it on with the approval of the landowner, of course.
Right.
They could be the agent, I guess, working with Parks and Wildlife. Would that be possible, do you think?
As long as that landowner approves them as an agent, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And again, the best way to learn more about all this, what we're talking about, is to go to just Google managed land deer permits in Texas,
and
it'll provide you with all the information.
You bet. Well, Larry, thanks a lot. I know I enjoyed a hunt on a managed land permit out at your lease out there in West Texas the last couple of years, and near the end of February. Sure was lots of fun, and it was a method, a way to get the deer numbers that your survey had indicated that needed to be taken. We got them. So now some of those big old fat does that were eating fillery, that plants, those plants that make that venison so tasty, are in the freezer right now. Larry, thank you a lot for being with us. And like always, I appreciate having you with us. You share a lot of knowledge that helps a lot of folks.
Look forward to being back with you next week.
For about the past decade, I've been hunting editor for Airgun Hobbyist magazine. I think the only magazine devoted strictly to airgun shooting and hunting in the country. Well, in that length of time, I've learned quite a bit about big bore air guns and smaller calibers too. A spot to go to that if you're interested in air guns, you need to know about Pyramyd Air. The website is PYRAMYD, PyramydAir.com. They have anything and everything you need, from the guns themselves, the big bores or the smaller calibers, to the accessories. Just remember PyramydAir.com, and there's a number when you get on the website if you need to call and talk to somebody. Give them a buzz, and they can fill you in on little details that you might need to know about shooting or hunting with big bore air guns. While you're on the website there, I'd like you to check out the big bore air gun that I've done a great deal of hunting with. It's the Seneca Dragon Claw, 50 caliber, pressures up to 3,000 psi, and it looks like a conventional rifle. Wooden stock. I think you'll like the appearance, and I know you'll like the performance. It shoots not only bullets, but also air bolts as well, tipped with a broadhead. Check it out. It's the Seneca Dragon Claw. Folks, this segment is made possible by Smokin Tex electric smokers that I've been using a long, long time, CatfishPro catfishing baits and catfish supplies, Ultrimatic Feeders, and AGM Global Vision, maker of the spotters and thermal scopes that I hunt with. Well, folks, what do you say we go up to beautiful Lake Texoma and visit with our buddy Bill Carey? Bill is outside, and we're being serenaded by all kind of birds. He's out there around his birds this morning, and what better place to talk fishing than out in the great outdoors this morning. Bill, good morning to you, buddy.
Good morning, Luke, and all y'all out in radio land.
I hear those nuthatches and whatever, wrens, and you name it. I'm not actually an ornithologist, but I know the basic birds. They're talking to you this morning, saying hello to all of our outdoor buddies, aren't they?
They are. The sun's cracking, and everybody's waking up, fixing to come to all this feed I put out for them.
You bet. Yep. You ever notice most of us guys, when we get up past 60, we like to feed birds? You ever notice that? A lot of us do. That's good. My wife says when the doves come around, she thinks I'm trying to bait them in. I said, no, that's illegal. We can't do that. We better talk some striper fishing. Is what we better do. I know it's been good. Well, another week. It's gonna, another week or so. A few more days. It's gonna be April. The end of March. Kind of give us an idea. I know that the SPAWN spawn is the key word for the not only stripers but the sand bass, the white bass too, right?
Oh yes, sir. Texoma magnums. I talk about them all the time. They're the largest I've ever seen, and they're all spawning. And these big old egg-laden females are dropping eggs. I tell all my guys, let those girls go this time of year. They can save you on a July day when you take a wrong turn because you're fighting the clock.
That's it. Yeah.
The sand bass will bite longer in the morning than the striper. That means in the summer.
They will.
So yes, sir. The stripers are running. Oh, it's just spring is sprung. We thawed out finally. It was a long, cold winter.
It was a cold winter. Seemed like it's. You talk about all the global warming. Of course, I'm certainly no scientist, but it seems to me like it's getting colder. I don't know. Global warming and the winters are colder, but I bet a lot of our listeners will agree with me. We have had a cold winter. Yeah. So, okay, I don't want to get too excited about topwater because I know that could start happening in a couple of weeks. It did last year in mid-April, but right now, are you soft plastics? Tell us some baits that's working at Texoma. Say here right now, as a present, at the end of March.
It's pretty simple right now. We're throwing 4-inch white glow sassy shad. That's white glow. It goes underwater with a white glow 3/4 ounce head. We use bass tackle with just a little bit heavier heads. Same line, 15-pound test is what we use most of everything. And 3/4 ounce heads. We'll use 1 ounce if the wind gets up, but 3/4 is usually the best for us. And then the guys that are catching the sand bass are slabbing. And that's a lead spoon, folks. That's what we call a slab in Texas. And they drop it straight down, reel it up, drop it down, bump it on the flats. Wherever they see the fish, they tell the people how to do it.
I have, as you know, I love striper fishing. I love to catch them. I love to eat them. I love everything about a striper. But I have always said, not every lake is like Texoma. Not every lake has a healthy population, or many lakes have no stripers. But a lot of lakes have the white bass, the sand bass. And when you trim those little fillets up, and there's your crow. I hear that crow. He's a weekly guest here on Catfish Radio. But
you bet.
Back to the sand. But you trim those fillets up. Honestly, they are excellent eating, in my opinion.
Well, you spotted those fillets. I poured out that bag last week. Last month now.
Yeah, a couple 3 weeks ago.
First of the month.
Yeah, right.
When I poured out that bag and you said, Bill, that's probably the cleanest fillets I've ever seen. I said, I get carried away, Luke. I want them totally 100%. No fat, no extra meat, no red. I just want them white. And there was a big sand bass mix in there.
I know that Bill's talking about at our outdoor rendezvous in Greenville, and that was the first. Yeah, it's 3 weeks ago, I guess now. The first Saturday in March. That was a ball. I know. Yeah, I pick up on stuff like that. Those fillets were snow white, man, all of them, and they fried up with the catfish. People next year. I mean, I brought quite a bit of catfish. I had plenty more. Next year I'm gonna bring more because people they were ready for those fillets and all the trimmings, the potato salad and those hush puppies. Yeah.
I was thinking. You said you might want to pick up the frying fish a little bit more. I can bring my fish wagon down here. That's my traveling trailer that's got all the cookers in it.
Fish wagon. I've never seen that, Bill. I've never.
Yeah. It's just like a concession trailer.
Oh, and, you've got one, huh?
Yes, sir. And we've got fryers in there, and there's a freezer in there, and a place to prep them, and we can drop the doors, and people come by and just pick them up.
Well, son of a gun, I didn't know. Yeah, that we'll discuss that, for next year. And so you do your cooking inside the trailer, and you got everything in there, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Every fish fry we hold right here at the party barn, we cook them in the fish wagon, then we bring them indoors.
Do you pull the fish wagon there, and then that's awesome. A lot of your clients, when you have like groups and all, that's part of your there at Striper Express, part of what you do, isn't it, Bill? You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She may be cooking 30, 40 pounds of fish. You got to have these bigger fryers for that. But yeah, if you want to do that, we can tool up for that, and boy, we can whip them out, buddy.
Now that's something we want to remember, and definitely probably want to do. Well, okay, so right now back to catching, folks. Bill and I start talking, we have such a good time. So it's like leaning over the boat at the end of a fishing trip. But we've had so many good times together. So slabbing right now for your white bass.
Yes, sir.
And then targeting the I would say pre-spawn, but gosh, Tech's almost so big, it's like several lakes. There's fish in all stages of the spawn time of year, isn't it? But
that's right.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Soft plastic.
That's
Yeah. So you'll be describe your go-to bait right now, if there is such a thing for stripers.
They've been using with some old fellows across the lake about 20 years ago. Invented a slab called the prune picker. And it's just another slab. Chris made me a board of the evolution of slabs in his 30 years of guiding up here. And it's a board about 4 feet long. And you can see where they went from oval and round to long and narrow.
Yeah.
And we like the 2-color, dipped halfway or dipped on one side chartreuse and one side white. And we like the 1.5 ounces. We like to keep a tight line, and there's a lot of wind on Texoma, and that's the biggest part of catching fish. Keep that line tight, feel that strike, rip those lips.
Yep. I don't know if any human is around that knows as much about different slab brands as me, and I hate to brag on that. I did a fishing column for the Dallas Morning News for 14 years, and I was exposed to every slab maker. You had your Vernon Allison slabs, you had your Holiday slabs, you had you had a guy named Ed Snelling that ran a magazine called the Fish Finder, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yep. And he had the Critter Getters. You had the Silver Dollar slabs. I mean, on it. And I got to know. You had the Ronk. Here's one for you at Texoma. Mac Ronk, R-O-N-K, Mr. Ronk. He was an old guy down at Toledo Bend. But Mac made the Ronk somethings. They were good slabs, but
you got me there.
Yeah, no, that's a local thing. They're Mac Ronk there. But slabs are, like you say, they're basically pretty basic, just a chunk of lead that's painted up. And I had a guide years ago, said, what are they hitting on the slabs? What color? He said, anything bright and shiny. That was his name.
That's correct.
He was up
That's correct.
If they've got to see them before they can hit them. So slab time. Now, okay. All right, so we're within 2 weeks, the topwater bite could be on, and I know that's going to depend on weather some and factors unknown to us mere mortals that what makes it happen, but it's going to turn on, and I've got a trip planned up there with you. We're going to film one of our TV shows, A Sportsman's Life, in May, but last year I think I sneaked up there with you a little early. In April, yep. I did, and we got in some good action in April. So, I don't know. There's just something about catching especially a fish that fights like a striper on a topwater plug. Right. It just, if you have adrenaline, it will bring it out. That's all I got to say about it. That's just so much fun, You know
what? We fill up all of our boats in May before we fill up March and April, because it's the anticipation.
Yep.
And now, out of the last 10 years, we've had a solid 7 month. Probably every year, there's not a lull between the different techniques of different topwater, blind casting the banks, which we do early. And then in the summer, you've got the legendary schooling action in the big schools, busting out in big schools in the big water. And then in the fall, the water cools down and we go back blind casting the banks till about the 7th, 10th of November. So we get a full 7 months, and we fill up May 1st. And I'll tell you a story. I got it for 25 years, and in March, I always had 2 pencil poppers tied on rods that were stuck in a tray on the side of the boat, because I guarantee you, one day in March, you'll be running, it'll be 80 degrees, and it'll be warm, and that sun is really warm in that water, and you will have a school of stripers blow up right in front of you when you're running down the lake, and you try and stop that boat and turn it around and get a couple of them before they go down. It'll happen in March, too.
It's amazing. Well, Bill, we're about out of time. Striper Express, I need I say more? I mean, Facebook, striperexpress.com. How about leaving a number for folks to call you?
Sure, folks. You can reach us at 903-786-4477. That is 903-786-4477.
Folks, let's talk a little outdoor cooking. Let me tell you about an electric smoker that I've been using for 15 years, I guess. Smokin Tex electric smokers. If you're tired of staying up all night keeping that wood fire burning when you're barbecuing, give Smokin Tex a try. They're made to last a lifetime. You can check them out at smokintex.com. That's SMOKINTEX.com. For seasonings, anything to do with outdoor cooking, all kind of jerky seasonings, sausage seasonings, Butcher Packer Supply. That's butcherpackersupply.com. I think the website is butcher-packer.com.
The snowflakes fall as winter comes, and time just seems to fly.
Friends, this segment is brought to us by CVA Muzzleloaders. In my opinion, the very best muzzleloaders in the world, the ones that I shoot. You can check them out online, cva.com. AGM Global Vision, maker of the Rattler and the Adder that I use. You can check them out online, too, agmglobalvision.com. Kuby's Wild Game Processing and Kuby's Restaurant in Dallas. And VINEYARDMAX, maker of some awesome deer attractant and some very fine game feeders and fish feeders located down in Nacogdoches, Texas. Check them out at vineyardmax.net. Friends, I hope you've enjoyed the show this morning. We've got a little time left, and I want to visit with you. And I want to talk about one of my favorite subjects in the world and favorite things to do, and that's hunt hogs. People that know me pretty well know that I'm kind of a hog hunting nut. I just love to hunt them. And, any way you hunt hogs is a good way as long as you reduce their numbers. I mean, that's just a fact. I told you many times I grew up on a farm up in northeast Texas when I was a kid, and hogs had a value back then, and they still do. I never got over that. And I've said it a million times, my dad, who passed away back in the 60s, if he were around today and knew all you had to do is get out there in the woods, do a little hunting, and you could get your pork, he probably would be very excited. But I've got a buddy about a mile from me down the road, a great friend, and this guy is a expert shooter. That's what he does. I don't care if it's a bow, a rifle, whatever. He is a shooter, a good shot, and he loves to shoot rifles. He's got a little rifle range set up down there, and I've got a corn feeder not too far from his house, right at the edge of a grove of pecans. And we've got it's called a snap-lock hunting blind. It's a freedom blind, little 4x4 blind on a trailer, an old boat trailer, actually. So that thing's mobile. We'll move it around. But this time of year, we leave it down there in that pecan grove, and it's situated an easy shot from the feeder, 40 yards, 50 yards, something like that. But this hunt, or this area, has morphed into a new way for me to hunt, and I want to tell you about it. It could be the perfect way for old Luke to hunt hogs. Now, I'm not an AR nighttime thermal hog hunter. I'm just not. Nothing wrong with that, but I want to hunt one hog at a time, and I want to drop him. I don't want to be out at night looking for hogs. Now, and I don't want to be shooting 200 or 300 yards across the big field at night, where I might accidentally, that bullet could go astray. I like to do, I like to be able to know where I'm shooting, know what's behind me and all that. That's just me. So listen to this. This is the perfect scenario now for old Luke to hunt hogs. Now, there's a knoll that my buddy, the shooter, Kenneth, built. It's elevated up about 4 feet, like a mound of dirt with a little flat top to it. That's a shooting spot. That is exactly 300 yards from his shooting range. So he does a lot of 300-yard shooting, and I do too from that. I have. But from that knoll over to an area back in the woods, there's a clearing back there that you have a good line of sight to. It's, I don't know, 400 or 500 yards. It's way back in there. But there's probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 acres of opening, and those hogs come out of the brush to root around back there. There's some hay where they feed cattle, and always some grubs, I'm sure, under that hay. But the hogs just gravitate to that place. Now, you can get on that knoll, and you're going to be making a 400-yard shot, something like that. And I'm going to tell you how we do it. Kenneth really turned me on to this. So I get out there, say, 45 minutes before dark, good shooting light. I get set up, tripod. I'll even lay a sheet of plastic down. My buddy taught me all this, how he does it, and it works like a charm. On top of this elevated mound of dirt out there. So I'm watching 400, maybe 500 yards out there. You go, whoa, that's a long shot, Luke. Well, it is. But I'm going to tell you what I'm shooting. I've got a CVA for this application, a CVA Cascade. It is a good top-notch rifle. I have it topped with a Stealth Vision scope, and there are no better optics that I've ever shot, and I've shot some of the best, honestly. I'm not bragging, but Stealth Vision makes some awesome, awesome scopes. So I've got that set up. Now, my rifle is chambered in 6.5 PRC, which is a flat shooting. I just love it. It's awesome cartridge. So I've got the makings to make a long shot, and these scopes, these Stealth Vision scopes, have a turret that you can dial in. Once I know how far it is out there, I dial the scope into that range, get settled down on that tripod, and squeeze the trigger and make it's not hard to make the shot because I know that scope is repeatable. You can shoot it at 200 yards, you can shoot it at 452 yards. And dial it in. It's as simple as that. But first, I've got to know how far it is to the hogs. So they could be 300, they could be 450, depending on where they show up out there and when they first come out of the woods. Now remember, I'm out there, say, 45 minutes before dark. Good shooting light. Now, again, Stealth Vision, you can call this a commercial if you want to, but I'm telling you, there's no better optics. I have their binoculars, range-finding binoculars. And then when those hogs come out, I'll get those binoculars steady on that tripod, and I'll just touch the button. I know exactly how far it is to the hogs. And then all I have to do is, if it's 421 yards, just dial that on the turret, on the scope, and get steady and make the shot. So that's what I do. That's the start of the evening hunt. That's with that CVA Cascade with the Stealth Vision scope, long range, and that's something in the years past I didn't do a lot of. But since I've have the capabilities now with those optics, I do a good bit of it, the longer range shooting. Now you can shoot those. Those scopes and their rifles, the Stealth Vision, half-minute of angle out to, 1,200 yards. But my setup there, I'm real good within about 500. And 500 is a long way to be shooting, folks. I'll tell you that. But anyway, so there, if I'm lucky and the hogs come out, I'll drop one out there at 300, 450, whatever, way out there. And I won't even go get it. I'm going to get it later. But then I head to my little 4x4 snap lock hunting, the Freedom Blind that's back over there by those pecan trees I was telling you about. I change rifles. Then I switch to the CVA little 223. It's the VH Varmint Hunter. The Cascade Varmint Hunter. It's a shorter barrel. It weighs about 9 pounds. It is a tack driver. I could make these long shots with that rifle, But I don't know. I just like to use the longer barrel. I've got it all set up for that with that scope. But I've got a thermal scope on the Cascade VH, the Varmint Hunter, and I have it in 223 caliber. A lot of people think, you hunt hogs with a 223, Luke? Well, yeah, I do. I do at night. But I'm shooting hogs always within 100 yards. Mostly, a lot of those hogs are 35 to 50 yards from me when they're coming into the feeder. But when everything works good, I've got meat out there that I'll use a electric buggy to drive back there and get that one hog I've got down after my thermal hunt. And I'm not going to stay on that night hunt late. By about a couple hours after dark, it's done. If the hogs come in, I'll shoot one. If they don't, I won't. I've already got one down out there with that long range situation. But I have been lucky and got a couple on the same evening hunt. Thought that'd be interesting to you to learn about that, or just a different way to hunt. Hunting with a regular day scope, the Stealth Vision scope, during the last 45 minutes of daylight. And I'll tell you what, the light gathering capabilities of those stealth scopes is world class. A lot of times those hogs won't come out till 10 minutes before it's dark, and good optics really, really pays a dividend when that happens. You could make those long shots with really good optics. Where most of the scopes I've had in my life, that would be a no do. You probably couldn't even focus on them at that range. But that's a fun way that I hunt hogs. Use the day scope during the last few minutes of daylight, and very often I'll get one because those hogs do come out. That's the first place they come out, and that shot I found usually doesn't bother these hogs because my feeder is quite a distance away from where I've shot that hog, and you might bring in a whole different sounder of hogs. Folks, I hope I didn't bore you with my hog hunting talk, but that's a passion of mine. And what I didn't say is, after my set with the thermal scope and the little 223, whether I kill the hog up close or not, I'll go back there and I take the quarters the way I do hogs. I got a good skinning knife, but I don't really skin the hogs. I just take the quarters, hide on, split them down the back, pull the back straps, pack, and then load that meat out of there. I can get it back home where there's plenty of light, and then just skin the hams out, chill them down overnight, and bingo, I've got a lot of fresh pork. Folks, thanks for tuning in this week. Remember, after this show airs on the radio, all our great radio stations, it also becomes a podcast, and you can listen to that wherever podcasts are found. Just go to Catfish Radio with Luke Clayton and friends. Have a safe week in the outdoor, friends, and make sure and join me right back here next week at the same time. Folks, that about wraps our show up for this week. I've enjoyed being with you, and I hope you've had a good time, too. And, folks, we're also brought to you by the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma, located about, 45 minutes west of Hugo, Oklahoma, owned by the Choctaw Nation. It's about 45,000 acres of awesome mountain, country, hills, valleys, loaded with game. Lots of eastern turkey, and they do eastern turkey hunts if you're looking for a spot to hunt turkey in the spring. Also, I want to remind you about the Seneca 50 caliber Dragon Claw that shoots bullets and pellets. And by pellets, I'm talking about 200 and 210 grain lead, chunks of lead. It's a big bore air gun that I use. Check out the Seneca Dragon Claw there at PyramydAir.com.